Hey, what's up everybody? Dr. LeGrange here at Optimal Mind Performance, and today we're going to be talking about magnesium specifically and how it can actually be effective for ADHD. I know a lot of parents out there ask me this question. A lot of people who have ADHD ask this question is, why is everybody this buzz about magnesium, using magnesium? Is it actually really effective for people who have ADHD? Well, diving in, before I really kind of get started in answering that question, if you want more nutrient guidance as well as different kind of foods to implement, what labs to run, I have a free guide for people who have ADHD, as far as adults who have ADHD, or if you are a parent and have a kid with ADHD, you could go ahead and download that free guide. If you're on YouTube, it's in the description below, and if you're on the Facebook Live, it's definitely in the description above that you could download that free guide. So jumping in right in as far as what does magnesium actually specifically do for ADHD? But a better question is asking, what does it specifically do for the brain? So magnesium is a very important type of electrolyte that is very necessary for the function of the brain, because what it's doing, it helps with the functionality as well as the binding factor for neurotransmitters to help with the receptors. So these can be neurotransmitters such as serotonin and dopamine. Now for ADHD and even a lot of other mental health issues such as depression and anxiety, serotonin and dopamine levels are not very effective. They're not as efficient as we would like to see it in ADHD, depression, and anxiety. So what magnesium does is specifically help with that transmission, help with that functionality. And if you tend to be deficient, well, guess what? Your dopamine and serotonin levels are not going to be as efficient as far as binding and making that process with the receptors to be able to help improve your dopamine and serotonin levels. So that is the big reason why magnesium could be beneficial. Now, why is it specifically helpful for people with ADHD? Well, just alone looking at magnesium deficiency around the world. Now, specifically a study that I saw in America is they found in all ages, about 50% of people of all ages in America had deficiency in magnesium. That's huge. Now, you might be asking, why is that? Why do we have a deficiency in magnesium? Well, you think about just the food alone. If foods that are processed more and more, in fact, about 80% of magnesium is taken out of the food during the process and the refining process of foods. So by taking more and more magnesium and nutrients out of foods can really deplete our consumption of magnesium. And this can be a big issue. But also just increase of consumption of carbs, like, simple carbs such as, and also soda pops, sugary stuff that a lot of kids and, adults can tend to do to consume more of that, and not getting enough of the whole foods that we should be consuming on a daily basis. So you can kind of see why there's a depletion a lot, especially here in America, of magnesium consumption, and therefore end up having a deficiency in magnesium. Now, what are specific kind of symptoms that you can relate of deficiencies with magnesium? These are things that could be, difficulty concentrating, insomnia, irritability, hyperactivity, muscle spasms, things like that, as well as also constipation. And I also mentioned about insomnia, but also anxiety and depression can be an issue for magnesium deficiency. So these are definitely big common things that could be a possibility that you might be experiencing, or if your child's experiencing these things, this could be indicating a magnesium deficiency. Now, as far as what are things that you can actually implement, why is it so specifically for ADHD? Well, another study that I saw specifically for people with ADHD, specifically looking at children, they found that about 72% of people with ADHD had a magnesium deficiency. So definitely higher than the 50%. So it's more common amongst people who have ADHD. And what they found in this study, when they implemented at least about 200 milligrams of magnesium a day, they found improvements for people who had ADHD in inattention, irritability, hyperactivity, impulsivity. These are big things that people with ADHD tend to have an issue with, and they found improvements with that compared to people who were just only taking medications alone and not implementing the magnesium. So you can see there can be a huge difference. Now, you can obviously consume more in your diet, things such as, bananas, fruits, vegetables that have high amounts of definitely magnesium in it. But a lot of people don't get enough in their diet. And this is why usually supplementation can be very helpful, especially for the time being. If you find yourself you are deficient, can make a huge difference, especially if you're deficient. Now, if you're not deficient, you might not see much changes, but maybe you might be just a little deficient. You might see subtle changes in your improvements. It really depends on where you're at. But if you have not tried this already, if you've not implemented magnesium or not checked if you have a magnesium deficiency. So what do you do how do you figure out if you have a magnesium deficiency? Well, most of the tests that I see out there are very inaccurate, especially for looking at magnesium deficiency. The best thing to do is look at your own symptoms. And I already kind of mentioned these before, but some really common ones is definitely looking at constipation. People who tend to be very constipated might have a magnesium deficiency. Muscle spasms. So if you end up having restless leg syndrome issues, or your child seems to be very spastic a lot, or for yourself, these can be definitely symptoms, as well as irritability, having trouble sleeping at night. Some people who have very low magnesium, if they implement doing magnesium taking or doing a magnesium bath, can find themselves to be able to have better sleep at night. Because magnesium is a really crucial part, just like I mentioned at the very beginning of this live stream, of how important it can be. So I hope you guys found this very beneficial. And if you have not already downloaded my free guide, I go over all my protocols as far as when it comes to ADHD, and for both adults with ADHD as well as parents who have kids with ADHD. It's my free guide that you can download, and you can download that either in YouTube in the description below or on Facebook right above here on the description. So this is Dr. Legrand signing out, and remember, you guys have an optimal mind. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.